Here are some of the numbers that have come directly out of the Social Security Service. Okay. People between the ages of 130 and 139, according to Social Security, there's 3.9 million of them. This video is about Elon Musk and the clear dichotomy he's created by bringing ultra masculine competence, which is sophisticated. So if you're a leftist, you can just think about it as ultra competence to the White House, basically exposing the fact that the left does not and has never cared about common sense or the intrinsic architecture thereof being logic or reason. An example of this would be, in order to spend money in the government, you have to have a reason that is at least somewhat connected to reality, rather than sending, for instance, social security checks to people who you know to be 119 years old, and apparently there's 3 million of them. What Elon Musk is doing is he's taking the identitarian nature of the left, which says you're a bad person and have automatically wrong ideas unless you have the right group membership, and he's putting that up against, should you send 3 million checks out to people who are 119 years old? The answer is obvious if you are being coherent. And therefore, since the answer is obviously you should not send out checks to 3 million people who are 119 years old, what that does is it exposes the fact that the left has never cared about objective reality. They've never cared about competence. That's not a priority. That's not their first, second, or third priority, as a matter of fact. Way before reality, they put victimhood. They put their identitarian element of, are you a part of our cult or not? They put, can we loot the oppressors by taking from them, in this case, taking from the American taxpayer and giving it to who knows who. Here are some of the numbers that have come directly out of the Social Security Service. Okay. People between the ages of 130 and 139, according to Social Security, there's 3.9 million of them. If any human at any point had anything to do with this, it is either an IQ below 50, meaning that there are some animals smarter than that person, or this is corruption. So either every single human who had any contact with this data either has an IQ below 50 or is corrupt. The government under the left is corrupt because they don't care about reality. They care about identitarianism, victimhood. Are we looting the right people and redistributing the wealth to those who really need it? And if we were to have to justify why they need this money, we would surely lose, because those courts of opinion are defined by oppressive mechanisms like logic or reason. That's what you're seeing here. People revile this competent force that was brought to expose this, because that force is ultra competent masculinity in the form of Elon Musk. They can't stand Elon Musk. There are many people who resent those that are more competent than them. This is a central scourge of the left wing way of thinking, which brings me to my next order of business, which is to say, if you want to support what I'm doing here, since YouTube has demonetized us, go to abrahambier.locals.com and become a member to support the holy fight against radical communism. Link in description. If they see somebody who is succeeding when they're not, they don't, this is very interesting, they don't ask themselves, why are they succeeding and I'm not? Instead, what they do is they say, this person is oppressing me, their success is illegitimate. And the technical reason why they do that, it's very simple actually. The reason why they do that is because the left-wing ideology, which is derivative of 20th century and 19th century ideologies such as Marxism, say you don't have to live in reality. And if you don't have to live in reality, then any person manifesting competence by transcending and embodying reality to manifest that competence is showing you that reality is real, therefore they're oppressing you. When they look at Elon Musk, they see a man who has succeeded, not just succeeded, revolutionized multiple fields, succeeded where governments have failed, with rockets, for instance, and They look at that undeniable success and say instead, I'm being oppressed by him creating rockets in some way, I'm not sure, but they don't have to delineate it. They don't have to explain why, because explaining why would use logic, competence, coherence of thought. Those things are all oppressive mechanisms because they lead to a conclusion that is not found within the borders of their ideology. The borders of their ideology are very simple. They're inadequate, obviously, but the borders are oppression. Are you a victim or not? If you're a victim, you're a good person. If you're not a victim, you're a victimizer. And if you're a victimizer, you're a bad person and you have less status. And all ideas and words that come out of your mouth are defined as right or wrong based on if you're a victim or if you're a victimizer. There's no concept whatsoever in the left-wing ideology within their ideological bounds of concepts like meritocracy. Those ideas, as far as they're concerned, they're in fact facts. They are derivative of reality. They're derivative principles of reality. And yet, when you talk to a leftist, they might dispute even the notion of meritocracy existing, even while they have to live in a meritocracy and sometimes are successful within meritocracies. They will still say meritocracies don't exist because that would invalidate this inadequate border they have of victimization and counterfeit virtue. That's how this is possible. That's why the left is angry that this is being exposed, because what's being exposed is the fact that Americans look at the situation using logic, using mechanisms, using tools that are outside the bounds of their ideological set. That's what they're upset about. They're not upset about the numbers. They're upset about the fact that you look at this and you see the way they operate approaching everything as fraudulent. That's why they can't stand competent men. That's the reason why if you look at who the left despises the most, it's always the most ultra successful competent men of society that young men especially look up towards. Think about it. Donald Trump, multi-billionaire president. Obviously, people look up to him because he's a multi-billionaire and he's a president, etc. He's a clearly competent executive because he ran the Trump organization, the biggest, if not one of the biggest developers of New York, right? Elon Musk, I don't need to list his resume, revolutionizing multiple fields, richest man in the world, etc., a genius. And clearly, probably the most looked up to man in the world. Andrew Tate, four-time kickboxing world champion, ultra rich, endless supercars, hundreds of millions of men look up to him globally. All of these men, the left demonizes endlessly. They slander them because these are embodiments, they are locuses of how the left is incorrect and fraudulent. As soon as you engage in objective reality, the left is already lost. This is why I say all the time, the left is actually an anti-reality cult. And this is defined by many different aspects that I talk about in my videos. If you scientifically measure the personality of this reality denial and resentment towards coherence and objectivity, you find that the personality is feminine. So you can say interesting things about how the left is distinctly and degenerately feminine in its personality distribution, scientifically speaking. You can point out the inadequacies that the left has, but really the left is just about denying reality because they hold resentment because they're weak, they're inadequate. They want their ideology to supersede what reality says. It'd be like saying, I want gravity to work differently. This makes them functionally psychopathic because believing that your ideology should trump gravity would obviously be psychopathic. Believing that you can say gender, sex, meritocracy, logic, reason are constructs, and instead your ideology is correct, is narcissistic and psychopathic beyond belief. Psychologically speaking, that would be a technical fact. I mean, if you were to say, for instance, that men can become women, just take a random example, and that reality is a suggestion. Biology and all of human existence and research is merely a construct used to oppress you, but you have the right idea because you think men can become women and should be able to beat up women in sports. That makes you psychopathic and probably also possessing other degrees of mental inadequacy. But this is how they operate. The left is weak, they're psychopathic, they deny reality, they're an anti-reality cult, and they will sacrifice anything on the altar of this degeneracy. Subscribe to the channel and support by clicking the link and becoming a member.